So here's another one of those stories that's not getting nearly as much coverage as it should. The White House has ordered direct Taliban talks to jumpstart Afghan negotiations. So let me give you some backstory here. Donald Trump escalated the war in Afghanistan. After saying the opposite on the campaign trail repeatedly, after tweeting the opposite endlessly during the Obama years, he escalated it. So as of today, we have about 15,000 troops there. That's a pretty hefty number, if I don't say so myself. Now, at the same time we have 15,000 troops there, the Taliban controls about 40% of Afghanistan. So this is what happens when you fight a guerrilla army. You know, this is where they live. They ain't going anywhere. Now, that doesn't mean the Taliban is good. Of course they're not good. But we kept moving the goalposts in Afghanistan. It all started out with, well, we got to get Osama bin Laden. Then they moved the goalposts to, okay, we got to get Al-Qaeda. Well, now there's fewer than 100 Al-Qaeda operatives in Afghanistan, so we moved the goalposts to, yeah, okay, the Taliban. Let's go with the Taliban. Then ISIS comes in there, and they're like, oh, we got to get ISIS. What? They weren't in there before. So now they're in there. You break the region. ISIS is an outgrowth of shitty U.S. policy. Then ISIS moves into the region, and then you're like, oh, we got to stay there because of ISIS. It's almost like a recipe for permanent war, no matter what. So, I think the Taliban may control more territory in Afghanistan today than they did when we fucking invaded all the way back in 2001. So that is pretty much the definition of a failure. That's a failed policy right there. That's what that is. So, yes, the answer would be pull out. What are we doing there? I mean, I think the reason why we're there has a lot more to do with opium and mineral wealth. Trillions of dollars of mineral wealth in Afghanistan. Minerals that are, used in your cell phone, for example. I think that has a lot more to do with why we're there than any notion of fighting terrorism. I mean, you guys know the deal. We're buddy-buddy with Saudi Arabia. There's an extremist Islamist ideology. Wahhabism runs that government. So, what? We really care about this shit? We invited Brunei, the country Brunei, I don't know how to say it. I always fuck that up. Into the TPP. They just implemented Sharia law in 2014. So, we care so deeply about fighting Sharia law that we're going to reward a country that just transitioned to it. Makes no sense because, again, we're not actually fighting terrorism. We're not actually fighting theocracy. It was all a ruse to just stay there and continue to extract and extort the country. So, 15,000 troops we have there. Now, to get to the main portion of this story. Direct Taliban talks. Republicans, imagine Barack Obama did that. You would never hear the end of it. Republicans are, no negotiating with terrorists. You're going to talk to the Taliban? The Taliban. Are you kidding me? They're not honest actors. You cannot talk to them. Now, having said that, if Obama did talk to the Taliban, I would have supported it. Now that Trump's team is talking to the Taliban, I support it. You want to know why? Because by any and all means necessary to get the fuck out of there. I don't care. I want to get out of there. In fact, I would even skip the talks and just leave. You want to support the Afghan government in one way or another, humanitarian, arms. I get it. I can swallow that pill if it means taking our troops out of there. I can do that. But I mean, if the idea is negotiate with the Taliban to then leave, I support that over not talking to them. I mean, that's my general take on it. And I know that might not be a popular opinion, but the idea we don't negotiate with terrorists has always been bullshit. It's always been bullshit. We've always negotiated with terrorists. Not just us, everybody does. Because sometimes there's no other options. So, I mean, listen, if I was president, I would be more likely to probably just leave, and then if the Afghan government wants some help, give them that help in terms of humanitarian aid and possibly arms. But if the debate is either stay there forever or talk to the Taliban and then leave, I would be on team talk to the Taliban and then leave. But again, this is another one of those instances where, Trump does this so the right's quiet, and they probably support it if you poll now. And it was the same thing with North Korea. Trump talking to Kim Jong-un. If Obama talked to Kim Jong-un and shook his hand and all that shit, the right would have melted down and said, this is crazy, you can't do that. But they supported it when Trump did it. So I do my best to try to never be an equal and opposite hypocrite. I would have supported Obama talking to Kim Jong-un. I supported Trump talking to Kim Jong-un. I would have supported Obama talking to the Taliban. I support Trump talking to the Taliban. I think that the Trump administration probably isn't nearly as good at diplomacy, and they'll fuck it up in 1,000 ways, but it's still better to talk than to not talk, as long as the end goal is to actually get us out of there. So I hope we do get out of there. And he should have just done it already. He should have already pulled us out at the beginning, especially since he spoke about that endlessly. But instead, he escalated. And he should be called out endlessly for that. In the same way that we're bombing 8 different countries and we escalated in Syria, we're occupying Syria. All this shit is the real shit the Democrats should be resisting. That's the real resistance. If you want to scream at him to get us out of these wars, that's an effective resistance that makes sense.